Have you ever noticed that, like, when you're learning English, there's this kind of like secret version that native speakers use? You know, you study all the grammar and you learn all these words, but then you go to actually have a conversation and it just feels different.
Yeah.
It's like you're speaking this textbook English and everybody else is speaking something else.
Absolutely.
And you're putting in the work, you're dedicated, but it's just, it doesn't quite click. It doesn't feel as natural as you want it to.
I think that is so common, and it's exactly what we're going to be diving into today. It's like, how do we bridge that gap between the English you might learn in a very structured setting to the English that people are actually using out in the real world?
Yeah. So today on the deep dive, we're on a mission to unlock more natural and more fluent English speaking for you.
Okay.
And we're drawing on some really cool insights from this YouTube discussion that we found, where these two people are having this really interesting chat about how to actually practice real English conversation.
Yeah, it's like they're breaking it down and really getting into the nitty-gritty of what it means to sound like a native speaker.
Totally. And we're kind of like your guides through that discussion.
Yeah.
Picking out the best bits and really giving you like concrete steps that you can take away and start using to sound more natural and more confident when you're speaking English.
Exactly.
Awesome. So let's jump right into it. Why is it so important to learn this like real talk English?
Well, think about the English that you probably come across a lot when you're learning. You know, you get the textbooks and the exercises, and it's all very grammatically correct and a little formal.
Yeah.
It's all about making perfect sentences.
Right.
But then you listen to how people actually speak. You know, when you watch a movie or you're chatting with friends or even just like ordering a coffee,
Right.
it's way more relaxed and less structured.
Yeah, it's almost like two different dialects of English sometimes.
Yeah,
You
totally.
You learn this polite, formal way of greeting someone,
Yeah.
but then you go out there and you hear, hey, what's going on?
Yeah, right, exactly. And that's why it's so important to really get this real talk, because if you only know this kind of like academic English, it can be really difficult to actually connect with people in everyday situations.
It's like, you know, the dictionary definitions of the words,
Right.
but the way you're using them doesn't quite fit. It feels a little bit off.
It's like you're missing that extra layer that makes you sound natural.
Yeah, and I think it goes even beyond just individual words.
Yeah.
It's about the culture that's tied to the language.
Oh, absolutely.
When you can use real English, you understand all those little nuances and you can fit in socially.
Yeah, it's like you're showing that you get it, you understand the culture, and you're not just like a visitor observing it.
Exactly.
Like, think about slang and idioms and all those little expressions we use all the time.
Yeah.
Like, no worries, or I feel you.
Right.
These aren't just random phrases. They actually say a lot about the culture. And if you can use them correctly, it shows that you have a deeper understanding of how people actually communicate.
It's like you're not just reciting something from a textbook.
Right.
You're actually participating in the conversation.
Yeah, and you know, even something as simple as like a casual greeting like, what's up, can be a little confusing for English learners.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I've seen that.
It sounds like a question that needs a long answer,
Right,
but
yeah.
most of the time it doesn't.
Yeah, there's no.
When someone says, what's up,
Yeah.
they're usually just looking for a quick, not much, or all good, or even just a nod and a hey back.
Right.
But, you know, if you overthink it and you start giving them a detailed report of your day, it's going to sound a little strange.
You're going to throw them off a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. The key is to just keep that conversation flowing naturally.
Exactly. It's like you're part of this shared understanding of how things work
Yeah,
in casual conversation.
yeah.
It's not about dissecting every little piece of grammar. It's about that ease and familiarity.
Right.
So when you can start incorporating that real talk into your English, it shows that you're not just trying to be correct, you're actually trying to connect with people. And that makes a huge difference in how fluent you sound.
Yeah.
So I think we've established that real talk is vital. But now let's really unpack this idea of fluency itself. Because just like those casual greetings, what it actually means to be fluent can be a little misunderstood.
You're so right. There's this very common misconception that fluency means speaking perfectly. Like you have to sound exactly like a native speaker and never make a single mistake.
Right, and I feel like a lot of learners kind of get stuck on this idea.
Absolutely. They think that to be fluent, their grammar needs to be impeccable and they need to know tons and tons of words.
Yeah, but that just doesn't seem realistic for most people.
Exactly. It's setting the bar way too high.
Yeah.
A more realistic and helpful way to think about fluency is that it's about the ability to communicate your thoughts and ideas smoothly and confidently.
Okay.
It's about natural expression, even if you stumble over a word or two or maybe make a small grammar mistake.
Right.
It's more about getting your message across effectively than it is about being absolutely perfect.
Well, that makes so much more sense. So if it's not just about having perfect grammar and a massive vocabulary, what are some of the key things that make someone sound fluent?
You know, for me, it's all about rhythm and confidence. You could have a really impressive vocabulary and understand all the grammar rules,
Right.
but if you're speaking hesitantly with lots of pauses or you sound nervous, it really disrupts that flow of communication,
Right.
and you end up sounding less fluent.
Yeah, it's like the musicality of language.
Yeah.
Even if you don't hit every note perfectly,
Totally.
if the rhythm is there,
Mhm.
it just sounds so much better.
Exactly. And that's why I always tell people to not get too caught up on perfect grammar when they're having everyday conversations.
Okay.
Obviously, grammar is important in the long run, but in the moment of speaking,
Right.
sometimes it's better to just focus on getting your point across.
Yeah.
Maybe use simpler sentences and definitely use contractions. It'll actually make you sound more fluent.
So it's more about prioritizing clear communication
Yes.
over trying to do like a grammar analysis in your head.
Exactly. And fluency is also about understanding the flow of conversation.
Yeah.
You know, knowing when to jump in, how to ask questions, how to be a good listener.
Yeah. It's not just about what you say, it's about how you interact with the other person.
Right. It's a two-way street.
And speaking of interaction, I'd imagine that listening is super important for developing that sense of rhythm and flow.
It's absolutely essential. The more you listen to native speakers, whether it's through podcasts, movies, or just conversations happening around you,
Right.
the more you start to pick up on the natural rhythm, the intonation, the pacing of the language.
That's like you're absorbing it without even realizing it.
Totally. You'll start to notice those little filler words like and,
Yeah.
and those quick responses that people use to make conversation flow smoothly.
It's like the glue that holds everything together.
Exactly. And a great way to practice this is to actually mimic real conversations.
How do you mean?
So like when you're listening to a podcast or watching a show and someone uses a common phrase, try repeating it out loud. Pay attention to how they say it, the rhythm, the emphasis, the tone.
Oh, that's interesting.
It helps your brain and your mouth get used to producing those natural sounding patterns.
I like that. It's almost like you're shadowing a conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And it shows that fluency isn't something you achieve overnight by memorizing rules.
Right.
It takes time and consistent effort.
It's a process.
Definitely. And you will make mistakes along the way. Everyone does, even native speakers.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The important thing is to not let those mistakes discourage you. Just see them as learning opportunities and keep practicing.
It's about that persistence.
Exactly. And one thing that can really help is to actually start thinking in English.
Yeah, I've heard that before, but it can sound kind of intimidating.
I know it can seem like a big step, but it's so powerful. Because when you can think directly in English,
Right.
you don't have to go through that extra step of translating from your native language.
Oh, I see.
And that can make your responses so much faster and your speech will sound much more fluid and natural.
So it's like retraining your brain.
Exactly. The more you practice thinking in English, the less you'll rely on translation and the more fluent you'll become.
Okay, so we've talked about what real talk is and what fluency really means. Now let's get into some of those common mistakes that people make that can actually block their fluency.
Okay.
What's one of the big ones you see?
I think a lot of learners tend to overthink every word before they say it.
Yeah.
They get so focused on using perfect grammar and the right vocabulary that they end up hesitating and pausing all the time.
Right, it's like they're trying to edit themselves in real time.
Exactly. And I get it, they want to be accurate, but that can actually make them sound less fluent even if their English is good.
It's like that pressure to be perfect is actually working against them.
Totally.
Yeah.
The key is to try and let go of that need for perfection and just focus on communicating your message,
Yeah,
even if it's not grammatically perfect every time.
it's more important to get your point across.
Exactly. What
Yeah.
about you? What are some of the things you see learners struggling with?
One thing I've noticed is that a lot of people don't use contractions.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
And I think it's because they think it's too informal or maybe even incorrect.
Right, but native speakers use contractions all the time.
Yeah, we do.
It's such a natural part of spoken English.
Exactly. So if you're not using contractions, it can make your English sound a little stiff and unnatural.
Yeah, it's almost like you're reading from a textbook instead of having a conversation.
So embracing contractions is a super easy way to sound more fluent.
Definitely.
Oh.
What other mistakes do you see?
I think some people are hesitant to use slang and informal expressions.
Oh, I see.
They might worry about sounding inappropriate or using them incorrectly.
That's understandable, but slang and idioms are such a big part of everyday English.
They are.
And if you avoid them altogether, you end up sounding a little robotic.
Yeah, it's like you're not quite on the same wavelength as everyone else.
Exactly. So learning and using some common slang and informal expressions can really boost your fluency.
It shows that you're comfortable with the language.
Yeah, it's like you're saying, I'm part of the club.
I like that. Okay, so we've talked about contractions and slang. What about the overall level of formality?
Oh, that's another important one. You know, using the wrong level of formality can make you sound out of place.
Yeah, like imagine speaking really formally with your friend.
Right, or using slang in a job interview.
Yeah, that wouldn't go over too well.
Not really. So it's all about being aware of who you're talking to and the context of the conversation.
Like reading the room.
Exactly. You might say, assist me at work, but you'd probably just say, help me out to a friend.
Right. And are there any other habits that you see blocking people's fluency?
Well, one of the biggest ones is simply not getting enough speaking practice.
Oh, yeah, that's huge.
You can study all the grammar and vocabulary you want, but if you're not actually speaking the language, it's not going to stick.
It's like learning any skill. You have to actually do it.
Exactly. Whether it's talking to a language partner, recording yourself, or even just talking to yourself in English.
Right.
Make speaking a regular part of your routine.
Okay, so we've talked about some of the things to avoid. Now let's talk about what we should be doing. What are some good ways to practice those real-life conversations and get more comfortable speaking?
Well, as we've said, having actual conversations is the best way to improve your fluency.
Right.
It's where you really get to experience how people actually talk.
You can't learn that from a textbook.
Exactly. And you know, it doesn't always have to be with a native speaker.
Okay.
There are plenty of other ways to get speaking practice.
Like what?
You could have online conversations with other language learners, or find a language exchange partner, or even work with an online tutor.
Okay, so there are lots of options.
Yeah, the important thing is to find opportunities to actually use your English.
What about conversations with friends versus conversations with strangers?
That's a good question. They both have their benefits.
How so?
Well, conversations with friends tend to be more relaxed and casual, so you can practice informal language and build up your confidence. But talking to strangers can push you to be more articulate and adaptable.
I see.
You might have to explain things more clearly or talk about topics you're not as familiar with.
Right, so it forces you to think on your feet a little more.
Exactly. And both types of conversations help you improve your fluency in different ways.
And I think even those really short, everyday interactions can be good practice.
Oh, absolutely.
Like ordering food at a restaurant or asking for directions.
Yeah, those might not seem like much, but they force you to use your English in real time.
Right, and you have to be able to think quickly.
Exactly. And you know, even just listening to other people's conversations can be a really valuable learning experience.
Oh yeah, for sure.
When you pay attention to how native speakers talk, you can pick up so much.
Like what kind of things?
You'll notice new vocabulary, idiomatic expressions, and all those little subtle things that make people sound natural.
It's like you're absorbing fluency just by listening.
Totally. And podcasts are amazing for that kind of immersive listening practice.
They are. You can hear different accents, different speaking styles.
Right, and you can try repeating phrases or sentences to work on your pronunciation.
That's a good tip. And what if you don't always have opportunities to have real conversations?
Well, you can always create your own.
How do you do that?
You can role play different situations.
Oh, like what?
Like imagine you're ordering a coffee or checking into a hotel.
No.
You can practice what you would say and how you would say it.
I like that.
Or you could record yourself speaking about a topic and then listen back to it.
Yeah, that can be really helpful to identify areas you need to work on.
Exactly. So the key is to find as many opportunities as you can to speak English.
Right.
Even if it's just for a few minutes each day.
It's about that consistency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even small efforts can make a big difference over time.
So to wrap up, any final thoughts or key takeaways you want to leave our listeners with?
Yes. I think the most important thing is to remember that fluency is about being able to communicate confidently and consistently. It's not about speaking perfectly like a native speaker.
It's more about getting your message across.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So embrace real talk. Find opportunities to have real conversations.
Yes.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
It's all part of the learning process.
Absolutely. So to recap, Remember that fluency is about communication.
Okay.
Real-life conversations are the best practice.
Right.
And try to avoid those common fluency blockers we talked about, like overthinking and not using contractions.
Yeah, those can really make a difference.
And remember, fluency takes time and effort.
It's a journey, not a destination.
Exactly. And we really encourage you to find at least one opportunity to speak English every single day.
Even if it's just a small interaction.
Any practice is good practice.
Awesome. So your action plan is to start incorporating more real talk into your English.
Okay.
Don't be afraid of making mistakes.
Yes.
Use those contractions.
Absolutely.
And find ways to listen to and speak English every day.
Every little bit counts.
So remember, you have the power to become a more fluent English speaker.
You got this.
Keep practicing. Focus on communicating naturally.
Yeah.
And most importantly, enjoy the journey.
Have fun with it.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive into real talk and fluency.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.